We learned this morning the Maamar of the Alter Rebbe on Mayim Rabim, and this is a Maamar from the Rebbe, said in 1977, Tavshin Lamed Ches, after the heart attack, on the same ideas. So the Rebbe says like this: Mayim Rabim lo yicholu lechabes ha'ava. The raging waters cannot extinguish the love. This is a pasuk of Shiur from Song of Songs, chapter 8. And the rivers can't drown it. So the power of the water, of the overwhelming waters, the multiple waters and the moving waters, the Naharis is, the Mayim Rabim is a lot of water. The Naharis is powerful waters, like a moving river. It can't put out the love or drown out the nefesh alikis, the godly soul. So the Rebbe says, V'isa, and it's brought down in the Tishrai Rebbe Seder Nisyenu, meaning the Maamar of the Rebbe, starting from the Alter Rebbe in Torah, or like the Rebbe quotes in footnote number 2, that Shemayim Rabim, what are these great waters? What does it represent in a person's life currently as an individual? It's all the tirdes. Tirdes is the anxieties and stress of earning a living, and thoughts about stress and anxieties of things that happen around you in this world that are seemingly out of control or overwhelming. Nevertheless, although you have them, you're suffering from them. It's like it's these raging waters that you feel like you're almost drowning in. Nevertheless, as great as those waters are, they can't extinguish the love that is hidden, that every godly soul has. And what is the addition besides the Mayim Rabim? What is the Shlomo Melech have to add? The raging rivers. It's not just that there's a multiple of waters, but it's like a raging river that is very powerful and very worrisome, matrid, and weighs on the person. Till the thoughts of the person are running. It's this in such a way, you can't stop thinking about it. It's overwhelming you in your thought process. You can't get it out of your mind. The difficulties that you may be suffering or dealing with. It's just like a river, that's running constantly, without any stop. Godlan is moving not calmly, but in a great, powerful rush. Can't drown out or extinguish the love that neshama has. It means notwithstanding, with all the stress and all the pressures that we have, the nefesh alikis, it doesn't get affected by that into the way. It means it gets overwhelmed. It doesn't overwhelm to the extent that it does. That it's not possible for you to sort of say to breathe. So he says, what does the word mean? Tirdes HaParnassah. What does it mean? The overwhelming stresses of earning a living. It says, Yigia kapecha, with the efforts of your palm, meaning of your hands. Kiseichel, a person should eat, meaning to say that a person's. Hold on a second. I just need to send something out. 1 second. 1 second. Sorry about this. It says, what does it mean, the overwhelming feelings of anxiety to earn a living? It says, with the efforts of your hand, you eat. You do it. We know that the verse says your hands. That's specifically your hands. We're not talking about the stress of your mind. In your heart. It means you should put your hands, invest your hands fully. And in your hands, it also means, of course, the level of your mind that you need to operate. Obviously, if you're not just a laborer, but if you're a person who uses your mind for your job, that's also okay. But talking about not to exhaust your mind over what's required in order to get the job done. Means what's the pasuk telling us? Not that you have to effort with your hands, not the efforts of your mind. Although that Hashem's flow in this world comes through the garments of nature, which means through our efforts, Nevertheless, it has to be a siyah our efforts to slavish hashpash. We need that in our efforts should be how God gives us the ability, the flow of our parnassah. It means He gives it to us through our efforts. Like it says, that where does God bless us in what you do? You have to do. You can't just sit there idly. Sometimes sometimes it's required even that because of the great concealment, it's not enough just to do casually. We have to toil. The word yagi means toil. Whatever you invest, even if it's your mind, it's your external. It's not personal. It's not like it takes your pneumius, your inner. Yagia kapecha, and it's represented by the statement that it's the toil of your hands. We're talking about your external efforts, your external tools, so to say. You apply to your parnassah, to your livelihood. Not your internal or hidden koiches, strengths that should be applied to only to Torah mitzvahs, which is in your heart and in your mind. Again, the pneumius of your moich and the pneumius of your lev. Of course, sometimes a lot of our jobs require us to invest ourselves. But here we're talking about to invest our minds and our heart. We have to understand what we're doing. But it's not the pneumius. It's just as much as required to get the job done. Because your pneumius has to be dedicated to serving Hashem. That's why you were created. You were created to serve Hashem. Hashem knows that a person has to earn a living. In order to serve Him, you need to earn a living to make parnassah. That has to be the external, not the internal, not the pneumius. That's only the chitzonius. שהשפע מסעלם ומסעסי בלבוש הטבע צריך להשתמש גם בשכלי לצורך העסק. And because that the flow of the blessing encloses itself in nature, and in nature also includes sometimes, like I said, your mind in order to do business. Not everyone is just working with their hands. Nevertheless, you only apply your mind in order to get the action done, to get the job done. You're not scheming and trying to figure out and oversmart the system, investing all your brain power into trying to figure out how much you could apply your brains. You just put in the amount that's required to create a vessel, a kli. You have to remember, it's not the parnassah that earns money. It's the blessing of God that makes a person wealthy, or it makes a person successful. And we must always remember that the business is only a garment, to the blessing of God. We never believe that the work itself is the source of our parnassah, God forbid. Now, how you're moving is understood. So just like if we're referring to that the clean, the vessels, in order to get the God's blessing, is like a levush. So just like when a person were to buy clothing, if you overdress yourself, it's not good. On the contrary, if you buy too long pants, you're going to trip. That's the idea of investing yourself. You're getting exhausted in the parnassah more than you should be. You should be doing what you have to do and wait for Hashem's bracha to come through without getting full of anxiety and stress. So here the pasuk says. So here we're talking about a person that does have stress. He or she is not living the way they should be, which is only yigias kapecha. They're only applying your external media kalim. You're actually feeling stressed because of your parnassah, meaning this, it's a sign, it's a siman of a lack of bitachon and a lack of understanding of Bechas Hashem hitasasha, that parnassah is only a levush. The Rebbe says, it shows you're not holding the level you should be. That if it's all up to God, if you can be successful, and therefore there's no place for anxiety. Nevertheless, a person may think that if you're falling under the stresses of parnassah. Nevertheless, even though you shouldn't be feeling these anxieties, but nevertheless, these anxieties will not extinguish the love you have for Hashem. It doesn't change the fact that you have a hidden love for Hashem. Yes, you have to work on that, on the fact that you have Tirdas HaParnassah, but the Tirdas HaParnassah, which are the Mayim Rabim. So meaning the Rebbe says over here so far in the Maamar that the Tirdas HaParnassah is a negative thing. It means you shouldn't be having Tirdas. If you really recognize that B'rechas Hashem hitasasha, it's God's blessing that blesses you, and it's only Yigia Kapecha, you're not Yigia HaMoech V'Halev. So that here we're saying that the Tirdas HaParnassah is a negative. What Shlomo Melech is saying is that though it's a negative, you should know it's not going to wash out the love you have. The hidden love that every Jew has because he or she has a nefesh of a godly soul. Now he continues, this that we say, that's a chiddush, that nevertheless, though a person suffering with overwhelming anxiety and stress, and we say that nevertheless it can extinguish the love we have for Hashem, do you do it's known, the Shiur Maamar Mayim Rabim, Daagas HaParnassah, who bechinas hatayu shekoydim l'tikkun. And here, so this is where it becomes a little bit tricky, because if you read the Alter Rebbe's Maamar, he doesn't so much stress about that the Tirdas HaParnassah are a negative choice of the person. He describes it as a negative situation that happens when we're in Golus. He says that in time of Shlomo Melech, anything was without Tirdas, without stress. But because we're in Golus, so we don't have where everything goes through the Ayin Sarim, goes through the angel's throw, goes to the Sheder Shtalshalis in a way of Golus, and therefore Golus Shechina B'Galus, etc. So the Tirdas HaParnassah, he doesn't emphasize so much as it's a bad choice of the person for allowing him or herself to be overwhelmed by the negativity of the stress of finding a living, or other things of health issues, other issues of Gashmias. But over here, the Rebbe says clearly that it's a choice, it's a mistake. Like he says in the parentheses, you're not realizing things properly. Had you done his bindiness properly, you wouldn't be having Tirdas HaParnassah. So here the Rebbe adds to that there's actually a plus side to the Tirdas HaParnassah, although it's coming from a bad place, because you should never allow yourself to fall into this anxiety. But here he says that it's known that Shiur Maamar Rabim, where does it come from? That a person is allowed, where is the source within the person that there's a place b'chlal to have this anxiety, these Maamar Rabim's overwhelming waters. It has a source within the person. It comes from the chaos, which eventually the Rebbe is going to explain as the nefesh b'hamis of the person. The nefesh b'hamis comes from the place of tohu. And in that place of Tohu, so that's where the source of the Maamar Rabim is, because the nefesh, like we said this morning, the nefesh l'kis is like whatever. So I have to do is much more passive in this world. The nefesh b'hamis has a much more, is in tune with a certain reality of, or the perceived reality of what he or she feels is stressful. So therefore, but he says you should know that source comes from the world of chaos, which is before tikkun. The Zeshen Nikroi Mayim Rabim Yosei Rabim. What's the idea of multiple? Gamitzat Sharshim Makarim. The Rabim is also because, like the Oiris Rabim, the great lights of Toyu. V'zeh Harabusa b'zeh. And this is the Chiddush over here. Shemayim Rabim lo yechoy l'chabes za'av v'naharis le'ishtayim. That although it's Mayim Rabim, and although it comes as a source from the world of Toyu, and Toyu comes before Tikkun, and the Nefesh L'kis comes from the word of the fixing of Tikkun. The Gam Shesharish Maamar Rabim v'naharis u'b'chinas Toyu shkoydel l'Tikkun. Sharish Nefesh L'kis, that although the root of where a person's feeling the anxiety from is a higher root than the place where the person's godly soul comes from. Because Toyu is before Tikkun. Like it says, the Fnei Melech, that the kings of Esav were kings before the kings of Yisrael, not just kings that they were kings before in time, but from a higher place. At its root. It's still not strong enough. And as it manifests in this world to extinguish the light. The essential connection the godly soul has withstands, notwithstanding the pressures of the anxiety and its source, that it comes from a high place. What's the reason that it could withstand if it comes from such a great place, the raging waters? As the verse says before that what is the verse in Shiur Shiurim that means? That that the passion, the fire of the godly soul is a fire of godliness. Because the root of the godly soul is a fire that comes from the essence of God. And at the essence of God, the atzmus, before manifestation, gilui, revelation, at that point the neshama is even higher than the world of Toyu, of chaos of Esav, the source of the Maamar Rabim. So though as the neshama manifests into a soul, it's lower than the nefesh bahamis, it's lower than the world of Toyu, of chaos, but its essential root comes from the Atzmus essence of God, and therefore there's nothing that could override that connection, the love that the godly soul has for Hashem. Because the root of the love that the godly soul has is because it's a flame of godliness. It's just like a flame is hidden in a coal. It's a flame of fire. And even more, it's not more than even a coal, he says. It's the way in a flintstone. The difference in a flintstone and a coal is a coal has the fire revealed. It's just revealed within the coal. A flintstone seemingly there's no fire at all. Even if you could pull a flintstone out of the ocean, you could turn it, you could get fire out of it. That means that what's the level of tzur than shalheves? The shalheves is the flame from the name of Havai, Yudke, even though it's the first two letters of Hashem's name. But the tzur, the flintstone, is even higher than the manifestation of the name. That's why it's the atzmus, the essence. Sheshamhu shayrish haneshama k'mavur b'lekutei Torah pirish hakasev aruch tashiv elakim asher nesana. When the Lekutei Torah explains what does it mean teshuva, to return to its place, the soul returns to its place where it was given from. Shebechinas halikim asher nesana bechinas hatzur. The likim that's referring to in the case of tshuva is the level of the fire that's in the flintstone. That's so you can't even see it. It can't be put out. You could leave it in the ocean forever. It's not going to be effective when you need to use it to bring it out. So he says like this. Not only not only can it put out, that meaning to say that the nefesh alikis could withstand the pressures of the raging waters. He asked that at least serim is more than that. Shayadam nasa yisrin ba'ava. Although again, like we said before, that the reason why you allow yourself to get overwhelmed by the waters is a bad case of bitachon and not believing that Birchas Hashem hitis asher. Nevertheless, when you are suffering from them, the waters themselves brings you a greater love than had you never had those anxieties in the first place. And this is the idea based on when the soul comes down to this world. And it comes into these great raging waters. And again, it allows itself to be overwhelmed by the waters. This is the idea of the neshama that has the yerida tzarech aliyah. The yerida is not just the yerida into this world, but it's the yerida into the mindset of the world, and to get overwhelmed by the world. And therefore, it has a greater elevation than had it remained in heaven, so to say, in Gan Eden. Like he says, okay, we're going to actually stop here and then go back to Dald. So I have to go. I thought I would have a little more time. We'll stop here and we'll continue the class, Be'ez Hashem, starting from